To krill is to kill? Today we're going to answer the question, is eating shellfish selfish? Documentaries such as Seaspiracy have sparked global conversations regarding the environmental impacts of the fishing industry. And while there's immense value in assessing how an industry as a whole can influence the environment, there is a risk that such generalizations can disregard nuances that individual species in the industry experience. In an attempt to ensure that even the smallest of creatures are not overlooked, this post is dedicated to understanding trends in shrimp production, its impacts on the environment, and whether high-yielding countries should be regulated in order to uphold global sustainability agreements. Aquaculture is the farming of fish and other aquatic organisms through breeding, raising, and harvesting in order to yield commercial products. Typically, shrimp aquaculture is considered to be less harmful than other forms of agriculture, urban development, or industrialization. However, an overwhelming lack in regulations within the industry has resulted in the environmental degradation of coastal regions around the world. Between 1 and 1.5 million hectares of coastal lowlands have been cultivated to establish shrimp aquaculture sites. This level of ecosystem takeover to construct something called shrimp ponds has severely threatened mangrove and marsh ecosystems worldwide. The takeover of mangrove and marsh ecosystems impedes on the ability for other aquatic species to use these habitats as nurseries or as an area for refuge. Consequently, entire habitats and the species that rely on them are at risk from suffering from the adverse impacts of shrimp aquaculture. First, it was crucial to gain an understanding in shrimp production trends in order to assess the relevance of shrimp farming within the industry. Data from the National Ecological Footprint accounts was used to analyze trends in shrimp production over time. As is depicted in the graph on your screen, the proportion of shrimp produced through farming became the predominant method of shrimp harvesting in around 2003. The rapid increase in proportion of shrimp farmed demonstrates that shrimp farming is a production method that is and will continue to be heavily relied upon. This indicates that an analysis on the commercial demands of shrimp product and the impacts of shrimp harvesting is critically needed. Data from the recently published National Ecological Footprint accounts was used to identify the highest producers of shrimp in the world for 2018. This was calculated by summing total shrimp caught and shrimp aquaculture stats provided by each country. The accounts revealed that the world's top 5 producers of shrimp in order are China, Mexico, Argentina, United States, and Indonesia. This is a change in data from 2017, as it was recorded that China, Ecuador, Mexico, Argentina, and the United States were listed as the top 5 producing countries. Naturally, the next question that follows is, what harvesting practices does each country use in order to amount their high yields of shrimp produce? This graph demonstrates that in some of the top producing countries, shrimp farming is predominantly used in order to obtain their high produce yields. That can be noticed in China and Mexico. A question that comes to mind is, what are the demands on shrimp supply that lead these countries to have such high production rates? Consumption habits may influence production per country. Therefore, understanding supply and demand trends can be significant when identifying opportunities to improve sustainability within an industry. The graph on your screen compares total and consumption for each of the leading countries in the shrimp industry in 2018. This image demonstrates that in some of the leading countries, shrimp production is a response to the consumption demand within the country, such as in China and in Mexico. However, it also identifies countries in which production is for trade rather than consumption. An example of this would be Argentina. In 2017, the data showed that the United States was a top producing country. However, their demand significantly surpassed their supply, and therefore indicated that the country relies on the imports of shrimp products. However, as can be noted, the 2018 data seems to show more equal production and consumption habits. Indonesia's consumption calculated was intriguing, as the data stated that they exported more tons of shrimp than were produced within the country. This is a significant difference from previous years and definitely warrants further inspection. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 14, Life Below Water, aims to address various sustainability issues regarding the world's oceans. Namely, 30% of the world's fish stocks are being overexploited, surpassing estimates for sustainable yields. Enforcing sustainable practices or regulations for high shrimp-producing countries is an area of research that needs to be explored, and soon, before extensive or permanent damage to the world's mangroves and marshlands is experienced. This does initiate a controversial discussion about industry responsibility. Should countries that rely on high shrimp imports for consumption be regulated to ease demand on global supplies? Should countries that rely on exporting large quantities to meet global demands be regulated for environmental exploitation? Is there a way to regulate international supply and demand trends in relation to the stress that consumption habits may have on shrimp aquaculture environments? These are the reflections that the data inspires and definitely require further inspection.